everyone, welcome to Mazda Miata Fan, Episode 6. We're going to take a look at how to replace the valve cover gasket on the NA and NB models. Naturally, the most common reason to do this is to replace the valve cover gasket itself, but it's also valuable for inspecting the timing belt and even having some fun painting the valve cover. Let's go. In order to get the valve cover off, first you'll need to remove this hose. It's the PCV valve hose that comes in from the intake. Next, remove this breather hose from the right side of the valve cover. Be sure to use pliers to take off the hose clamp. Take the spark plug wires off of the spark plugs and move them to the side. Label them if you have any question about where they go back. Once you get the spark plug wires out, time to remove the bolts from the valve cover. As you remove the bolts from the linkage in front of the valve cover, be sure to take note that those are smaller bolts than the bolts that go in the valve cover itself, and don't get them mixed up. Remove these bolts with a 10mm socket. You should have very little difficulty removing these bolts. If you find that they're extremely difficult to remove, somebody has over-tightened them in the past. However, we will be sure to correct that deficit by using a torque wrench set with the appropriate inch-pounds later in this video. Start removing the bolts from the center of the valve cover in this order. By following the circular pattern, you'll safely remove the valve cover. The valve cover's loose and we're almost there. But not quite. We've still got two important bolts to remove. The valve cover is attached to the coil pack where the spark plug wires were housed earlier by two bolts. The first one is right here. These may be in very tight, so be patient and don't round off the bolt heads. Use a 12mm socket to get both the left and the right side. That's it. The valve cover's free. Take it out of the car and set it to the side. We've got other work to do right now. We need to take a look at our timing belt. Inspect the top of the timing belt and look for any damage to the belt, excessive wear, or any other indications that the belt may be in jeopardy and may need replacement. The belt should be tight, but not too tight. Use your hand to manipulate the belt and twist it slightly to make sure that there's a little bit of play in the belt, but that it's not so loose that it's in danger of falling off. Also, be sure to check the underside of the belt carefully. There should be no cracks or any damage to any of the teeth. If there is, time to replace your timing belt. Let's freshen up this nasty looking thing while it's out. First, get some simple green or your favorite degreaser and spray it on the top of the valve cover. We want to get all of this nastiness off of here so that the paint and primer will have a nice surface to adhere to. Get a scrub pad and scrub away all those years of nasty gunk, oil, and debris that rest on top of your valve cover. We want a nice clean surface. Don't forget the underside. Spray it with the simple green. Get it good and clean. Trust me, your engine and your valve cover will thank you. While you're there, make sure to remove the old valve cover gasket while you've got it flipped up. Now that the old gasket's out, we need to clean those grooves that the gasket was sitting in. Get some simple green or even brake cleaner and apply it to those grooves. Get a toothbrush or any scrub brush and scrub out those grooves carefully. Make sure to get any old residue from that old valve cover gasket out so that the new gasket will have a nice clean housing to sit in. Do a good job and take your time. Time to wash it all away to get a nice clean valve cover. Use a steady stream of water and get all that simple green and that old oil out of there. Rinse off the top of the valve cover as well. Make sure to let it completely air dry when you're done, or use pressurized air to completely clean the valve cover of any excess water. Before we hit it with the primer, take off the spark plug wire holders and remove the rubber grommet from the PCV housing. Now comes the fun part, putting on the primer. Support the valve cover off from the ground so that you can adequately primer all of the facing parts of the valve cover. Use engine primer that's heat resistant. Shake it up good. And apply the primer in even strokes from side to side. Use overlapping strokes and be sure to adequately cover all areas of the valve cover. Once it's dried, hit it a second time and get ready for the paint. Now for the part that really makes it look great. We're ready for the paint. Use engine paint that's heat resistant. Shake it up good. And just like with the primer, use sweeping motions and cover it from one side to the other. Be sure not to stop in any one place for too long, or you'll end up with nasty drips and even bubbles in the paint. Once it's done and it's dried, hit it again for a final shine. Now while the valve cover's drying, we have some important work to do here. We need to clean off any spots where the valve cover gasket is going to be touching back on the motor. Do a great job by using some simple green or some brake cleaner and wiping those areas thoroughly. Once the valve cover is dry, put the new gasket in place. Make sure to push the gasket thoroughly into all of the grooves on the valve cover. We don't want any areas where the valve cover is sticking out because it could allow an oil leak to occur. There are three critical areas that we need to put that gasket sealant, and it's each of those places where the cams have the rounded edges at the valve cover. Each of these areas that I'm pointing out here in the video. Two at the front, and one in the back. Be sure to clean these areas thoroughly to get any old sealant out of those cracks. When you apply the sealant, apply enough to make sure that it's going to get into that groove, but don't overdo it. You don't want to put so much that it ends up in the motor or makes a big mess. We're in the home stretch. Check that valve cover gasket one more time and push it all down firmly and make sure it's seated in place. Take the valve cover, push the back in first, and seat it very carefully back down onto the motor. Once it's in place, look very carefully and make sure there are no spots where the valve cover gasket is sticking out from the sides or seated improperly. Check your fit very carefully. Make sure it's seated firmly and make sure it doesn't slip loose. Once it's seated properly, you're in good shape. Time to start tightening the bolts down. Now I've already put them back in place at this point. Set the torque wrench to between 43 and 78 inch-pounds. I set it for the high end because I want to make sure that the tension on the bolts is sufficient to prevent leaks. Tighten the torque wrench until you hear the final click. At that point you're good. Now just like the removal process, you want to make absolutely certain to tighten the valve cover down in a circular path. So from here, tighten them in this order, in that same circular pattern that you removed it. Some final details here. Don't forget to reattach the linkage to the front of the valve cover and tighten them down to the same torque specifications. Put the oil cap back on. Put the bolts back in to attach the valve cover to the coil pack. Put the spark plug wires and spark plug wire holders back in place. Attach the breather hose to the right of the valve cover. Reattach the grommet for the PCV valve. Put the PCV valve back in and attach the hose. Start the engine and inspect very carefully for any oil leakage along the valve cover gasket. If you find any, guess what? You'll be starting over. So I hope you did a good job and finished with the project with a happy ending. So that's it for this edition of Mazda Miata Fan. If you follow the steps in this video, your valve cover gasket should be sealed tight and you should have an oil-free top of your engine. Thanks again as always for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the show. Take care. Bye-bye.